Hi, and welcome to the Ask the Doulas podcast. I am Alyssa Veneklase, co-owner of Gold Coast Doulas, and I am here with my business partner, Kristin, the other owner.
Hello.
Hey, so we had a podcast a while ago where we talked about things we wished we would have known postpartum.
Yes.
And then we decided to talk about things we wished we would have known about pregnancy and just kind of talk about some of the weird experiences that we went through personally. Maybe some funny things, maybe some gross things, who knows. But yeah, what was your pregnancy like? You had two.
Yes. So with my daughter Abby, I had a pretty easy pregnancy up until 37 weeks. So my midwife used to call it the perfect pregnancy, and up until I got preeclampsia. But yeah, I didn't gain a whole lot of weight. I had a lot of nausea. So that
like starting, just in the beginning or the whole time?
All of my pregnancy. And I was driving to Lansing every day for work, and I would pull over, I would plan out my day, so I left really early because I would need to pee. So I would stop at the rest stop near Portland, or actually pull into a grocery store in Portland and use the bathroom because I could never make it the whole way to Lansing. And I also needed to walk around, so my legs just didn't do that well driving and would get kind of tingly and needed to move.
So even that's only an hour drive from here, right? So
it's about an hour to an hour, depending on traffic.
Okay.
Yeah, an hour.
So in an hour to an hour and a half's time, you couldn't sit for that long or go that long without peeing.
And there were multiple times that I would have to pull over and throw up on the highway. And that was part of it, is I was so nauseous driving or being in a car. And there were times that I remember going to a friend's party in the summer in Patrick. I had to pull over and I threw up on the road.
On the way to a party?
Yeah. Yeah.
So was that all day long, every hour to an hour and a half? You would have to get up and pee, or you'd feel nauseous, or you had to move your legs? Mm-hmm. That's tiring.
Yeah. But
But you still consider it a perfect pregnancy, it wasn't.
I had nausea.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad.
And then toward the end of my pregnancy, I also had the restless legs syndrome. So I would get up in the middle of the night and have to hop on one foot and wake Patrick up because the cramping in my leg was so intense. But I've always had vein problems and circulation in my legs, so
that was probably a circulation issue.
That's
while lying down, that made it worse.
Yeah, I only had the cramping laying down, and I didn't know until later about using magnesium or Epsom salt baths and different things you can do when you are dealing with cramping. It wasn't anything, I don't think I brought it up at an appointment. I just was okay, I've read about it, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's weird, but yeah. So what did you have that was?
Well, what about with Seth? How was your pregnancy? Was it different with Seth?
It's totally different. Seth was so much easier. He was also a much bigger baby by almost 3 pounds. Mm-hmm. So I was showing a lot earlier. I felt like I was instantly had the little baby bump. And but yeah, he was a chill baby in the womb. Abby moved around a lot. I used to, call her my little goldfish. She was in a fishbowl. I could feel her movements very early. And with him, I was always is he all right? He's not kicking me. He's not kicking my rib. He's not moving. And so I would have to be are you in there? He's just sleeping and chill.
Poke him a little bit to make him move around. He's leave me alone.
I'm just sleeping, Mom. But yeah, but I definitely was showing earlier and felt I didn't have the nausea that I did with Abby. But with him, I just felt bigger and heavier, but I didn't gain more weight at all. Same amount, about 32 to 35 pounds.
Yeah, my pregnancy was lovely. I always tell people, if I could be a surrogate, I would just keep having people. I don't want more children.
Right.
And we went into this knowing we were only having one, so yes. I cherished every moment. But I didn't have any nausea ever. Yes. I slept great. Like everything was literally perfect.
Did you have heartburn or anything?
One day, literally one day. I remember sitting in my office at, I worked at a construction company, so it's all these guys, and I'm like, does anyone have Tums? Like, I don't even know. Like, what do I need? I've never had heartburn before. Nobody did.
What?
My boss was like, I think I have an old pack in this cupboard in this bathroom, and they like expired 15 years ago, but I was like, screw it, I'm taking some. I remember mixing baking soda with water, and I drank that whole thing down because I'm like remembering, basic chemistry and acids and bases, and I'm like, I think I'll just drink some baking soda and see if it helps. And it didn't. But I literally only had it one day. I didn't gain a ton of weight either. But since I was only having one, like I wanted to look pregnant so bad.
Yes.
So bad. And I'm really, really tall with a really long torso. And it just took forever. Like I felt like I looked pregnant at like maybe 30 weeks.
Yeah.
So I remember like finally seeing this tiny little bump. I mean, literally, like I could have just eaten too many burgers and fries that day. And I was like, yes, there she is. And I went out and bought maternity pants and all this stuff. And then the maternity pants would fall off because I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
But I really, really, really loved being pregnant, loved looking pregnant, loved how I felt when I was pregnant. I worked out normally through the whole pregnancy, and then finally it was like I remember the day that I think she must have just dropped. It was like my hips moved, and it was like, oh, what was that? And I could no longer do the workouts I was used to doing. I went from like literally going to kickboxing and yoga and all these classes to like, okay, I'm working out at home now.
Yeah.
I can't run. I can maybe walk, and then I can no longer stand up. The whole, even 35 weeks pregnant, I'm like standing up to put pants on and doing everything normally. I'm like, okay, now I have to sit down to get dressed, sit down to put my shoes on. So that was the biggest change, and my boobs got huge.
Yeah.
Which I didn't expect to happen that soon. I thought it got even worse as, after the baby was born, after she was born, and my milk came in.
What size bra do I? Because they're huge now. Are they going to stay huge?
I know.
What do I buy for?
I was just
bras?
busting out of my, regular bras because I didn't know what. I'm like, are they going to stay like this? Are they going to get bigger? Will they go back down? Like, what's happening?
Right.
What will happen?
Yeah, and I was still nursing Abby during my pregnancy with Seth, so I didn't have a big supply, but I had milk throughout my entire pregnancy. So that was weird, but that's how it was. And then my milk came in after I had Seth, and it was like, whoa, so much.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with it. Luckily, I had Abby, so she's like, okay, I'll help you out. This is
I'll
great.
take it.
Yeah.
So when you were pregnant, did you have really weird dreams? I do remember hearing that you could, but that was one of the most noticeable strange things for me, was that I had really wild dreams.
Yeah, I felt like some of them were so lifelike. Like I felt like I was living the dream.
Like very vivid?
Yes, very vivid. Like almost in full color, just, like a movie. But I didn't have night terrors like some women do, or I couldn't remember all of my dreams. So some people would keep a dream journal, I know, during pregnancy and try to record. Did you keep a journal?
Yeah, I've always been a good journaler, and especially through pregnancy. Again, knowing this was probably our only one, I wrote down a lot, and I did write down a lot of dreams. One that I remember most vividly is I gave birth to a kitten.
Oh, wow.
And the kitten was adorable, but I remember wrapping it, like swaddling it, and then telling Brad, this is a really cute kitten, but I hope next time we have a baby, it's a human.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and then another one is Finn came out, but she was a baby, but she could talk.
Oh.
And so she looked at me straight in the eye and said, well, aren't you lucky? You have a baby that can tell you what she needs. And I was like, this is amazing. Yes. This is great. Yeah, just really, really, really strange.
I love that. Yeah,
really
I
strange
can't
ones.
remember anything specifically, but I do remember that they were very vivid, colorful.
What about like hair and skin changes? Like I know I had friends who, their nails grew long and their hair was so beautiful, and I had the opposite. It's like she drained all the nutrients from me. My hair got super stringy. My nails were really thin and would break a lot. And then it finally went back to normal after I had her, but I did not get this. But then those people who get the beautiful hair during pregnancy, those are the ones who it starts falling out.
In clumps.
So I didn't have the hair loss, but it's because I didn't have gorgeous hair during pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I felt like I grew more hair with Abby, but with Seth, I was nursing, so I was depleted anyway. But I didn't get a lot of weird hair growth. My belly button popped out. Like when my belly popped, my belly button was probably 4 inches or so out. You could
4 inches out?
You could see it in photos. Like with the belly button was like boom. And
with both pregnancies?
Yeah. And I always had an outie belly button, but it never was protruding all the way out. It just wasn't
So do you think pregnancies with that belly button that pops out is people who already have an outie belly button?
I don't know.
I wonder what the stats are on that. Because I don't have an outie, and I never got it. I mean, it obviously because the baby's pushing on it, it got closer to the, there was less of a hole there. But it never popped out.
Maybe someone with a medical background.
Could explain that. Someone, please answer this question. Or I could Google it, I suppose.
But it does make sense that if you had an outie, and I really popped because of my frame. I was all belly with both of my kids, and Seth was bigger, so it was even more pronounced in the photos. But I had friends that asked me, and they're like, "So, is my belly button going to look like yours?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And theirs never popped out, so it's definitely not, for everyone. People can have again that hair growth in different places in their body. And the nails, like you mentioned, and I feel like
I did get hairier on my body, which was not a good thing. I would have rather had the luscious hair on my head. I do remember my belly looked fuzzy.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of have peach fuzz anyway, but I feel like it was dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people, of course, get the line around going up their
I didn't
stomach,
get that either.
So I didn't either. But yeah, there's some definite weird changes in pregnancy. So
Finn was born covered in black hair. Not all, I shouldn't say covered. She wasn't like a monkey, but she had blonde. Oh yeah. I mean, she had dark hair in her head, which she lost it all, but all her shoulders and her back had this black peach fuzz. And I remember Brad looking at me going, "Oh my God, will that go away?" I'm like, "Yes, it will." Yeah. It's we had a fur baby. What is going on?
That's awesome.
But yeah, it all fell off. But unfortunately, so did the hair on her head, and she was bald for about a year.
Right? Yeah, that
and
happens.
Now she's totally
people
blonde.
Don't expect it to, or the hair can be really dark and then be light, and so there's so many weird changes with babies as well. My kids were covered in vernix. I don't know if Finn was.
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit when I look at pictures. Not not really super thick. It looks like you could peel it. Yours was
cheesy kind of it was.
You had a lot, huh? You had excessive, yeah.
And I didn't know as much about the benefits of it. I would have rubbed it in and myself some.
Right.
But I definitely. We kept it on them a bit, and so till they sponge backed it off.
Yeah.
So.
I remember my boobs getting really veiny, in producing milk,
100%. Yeah.
super veiny. And I didn't even really notice it until Brad one time was like, "Why are you so veiny?" And I'm like, "What do you mean veiny?" And then I had a tank top on. I think it was the summer, and I was like, "Oh my God,
right.
I am veiny." It's they just kind of it was like they were going to pop right through my skin became transparent or something.
Yes. That is definitely.
And then they got even worse when I was actually nursing.
Yeah, I was going to say that continues through nursing, but then after things go, most everything with pregnancy goes back to normal after either nursing or delivery, so depending. But yeah, I don't think I have any like strange after effects having like things that lasted beyond pregnancy that I didn't have before, other than getting varicose veins, which is genetic for me. They were more pronounced and worse with Seth, and I'm still off and on getting treatment for it because my legs ache. And as I mentioned, like I had the restless leg syndrome, and so that is, I would say that's my biggest lingering thing is problems with circulation in my legs.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything either. I mean, the basic, your bladder is not as strong, but if only probably every woman in general, but, even during pregnancy, if you go see a physical therapist, I saw a wonderful woman named Joellen at Holtz Jepsen, and she, literally it changed everything. I don't think people understand, like, you can do physical therapy, and it's not just Kegels, and you can do Kegels the wrong way, and you can actually do Kegels 100%. Too many times, and then it has the opposite effect. I just really learned a lot, and it helped tremendously. Like, even now, 7.5 years after giving birth, I still had to get up once, sometimes twice a night to pee. Right. And when I remember to do these exercises, sleep all night long, I wake up and I go pee. But I can tell if for like a week, I just kind of forget about it. 2 or 3 nights into, I'm waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to go pee. I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't been doing my exercises. Yeah. And there's a very specific way to do them, and it's so easy. I could like literally be doing them right now.
Wow.
And it helps like instantly. But people just, your mom tells you, it is what it is. Yep. You'll never be able to do jumping jacks. You'll never be able to run. Granted, when I sneeze, I still do have to cross my legs. And sometimes go change my underwear because I peed a little bit. So I probably should do the exercises more, that means.
Yeah, I noticed it. I was doing a virtual 5K with some friends, and I'm like, my bladder I feel like I need to, empty my bladder right now. And so, it just doesn't, I should probably go see a physical therapist, I think, but because the concrete running was not ideal for me. I couldn't imagine being a marathoner. That was just a 5K.
Nope, not for me.
But, for me, like, books you read and classes you take, it's like, you're going to be potentially gassy in pregnancy and not know it. And I was working at the house in the later part of my pregnancy in Lansing in communications. And I remember like huddling around with some male coworkers, and I passed gas in front of them, but like it was silent, but it was very smelly. And they're all like, oh, they knew it was me, and they didn't want to be
They didn't blame it on each other. They knew it was you.
Yeah, they knew it was me. I knew it had to be me. And it's like, this is a real problem. So I apologized and walked away.
I didn't know farting was a pregnancy issue. I don't ever remember reading that.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I guess I didn't have it. Or if I did, I was just farting my whole pregnancy without knowing it.
Yeah.
I don't remember it at all.
I remember in childbirth classes, like, people would pass gas. Yeah. It's just funny how it is. So.
I was nervous about the whole pooping on the table. That was like my biggest fear is, oh my God, am I going to poop in front of my husband?
Right. And
I don't think it ever happened.
Yeah. But that is one of the most common fears that my clients have is pooping during labor and having people see it.
But the nurses,
it's not a big deal.
The nurses just kind of sweep it away, right?
Yeah, you don't even know.
Yeah.
So
I remember asking Brad, I was like, a friend was like, yeah, I think I pooped on the table. And I was like, Brad, he's like, no, not that I know of. I don't think so. I'm like, okay, good. Even if I did,
not everyone does. I mean, not
right.
all of my clients do.
Well, I remember going, like, specifically going to the bathroom that morning and thinking, good.
Yeah,
I went,
cleaned
yeah, but
right.
not that it can't go again, but I had that thought in my mind. I hope that the day I give birth, I poop in the morning so that I don't do it in front of my husband on the table. Mm-hmm. That was a legitimate fear.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's weird. Body's doing so many weird things in pregnancy, and we can talk about some more of the birth experiences later in a future podcast. But yeah, so
did your water break?
In my labor, with my first, while I was pushing, my water broke. And then with Seth, I got into the hospital. I was in pretty active labor. And I remember he was so low. Like, I felt a ton of pressure the second I got to the hospital. And just felt like I needed to empty my bladder constantly. So I was toilet sitting, which is great for labor. I was telling my clients to do it. And then I remember doing hands and knees and like on the floor of my room. And then Patrick was out in the hallway calling our friends who were going to take Abby from the babysitter. Actually, my parents had Abby, never mind. But he was in the hall and he could hear the pop of my water breaking from the hall on the phone with our friends. And so it was that loud, and like I had a long skirt on, and the water it was like a huge pool, and everything was soaked, so that I was naked after that.
So you were in active labor in regular clothes? You still had
I planned to be in a long skirt and a nursing tank was my choice for labor. Okay. And I had like a pad and underwear, but it was like, boom. And so then my doulas took off my skirt and then I was naked for the rest of the time. So my water broke, but it was total, like that's what you expect to happen. Like from the movies, like it just is this huge explosion in water everywhere. Yes. When realistically, I think in our other podcast, I said like 30%, but I think it's half that. I think it's 10 to 15% of women. So it's very, very low, like highly unlikely your water will actually break. But mine did lying in bed. Mm-hmm. And I was laying there and it woke me up. I felt like I don't know, like when your period first starts, and like you can feel some blood coming out. It was almost like that kind of feeling. So I got up and I was like, well, I'm awake now. I better go pee. And I climbed out of bed and went, oh, I remember like grabbing myself and then kind of like waddling to the toilet. And I sat down and I'm like, okay, wait. My pants are wet. My underwear is wet. Like, what is this? Did I pee myself? Is it, I'm going through all these thoughts. Did my water break? But it's not like gushing. I don't remember a smell. I pictured like this big gush of water and it wasn't. It was like it was like a trickle. Yeah, you had a slow leak, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sitting on the toilet and I go pee, but then like I put a pad on and I realized that it's a constant trickle, so I better call my midwife, and I did. And when you go into triage, they always check that because they're like, oh yeah, you think your water broke, but
I've had clients think their water broke and it's like trickle and then it was pee, like maybe so low.
And I've heard that, so I'm like, well, and then they check. And she's like, nope, sure enough, that's amniotic fluid, like you're good. Yeah. And I had been, so that was, I think I slow leaked from, if my water broke at maybe 4 a.m, and I ended up in the hospital. I went in at noon. Yeah. That was a long time of it just kind of slowly leaking out. I just felt like I was peeing myself a little bit every time I took a step.
And did it continuously leak throughout your labor in the hospital, or did you feel like
that? I don't even remember. By the time I was in the hospital bed, contractions were like pretty.
So you were focused doing your work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think we have this notion in our heads of what your water breaking will be like, and probably it won't even break, and if it does, it could be any number of ways.
Right? Yeah. And we also, expect pregnancy to either be really life-changing, where you can't do any of your normal things and don't have the energy to work out and all of that, and then or birth to just be like in the movies where you're screaming and in pain. But the reality can be so different from child to child, pregnancy to pregnancy, and like, you know, your energy levels can be different based on nutrition and exercise and age, of course. So I had my kids at an older age, so it's much different than my clients who are 22, like me being 39 with my second pregnancy. So yeah, so there's some of that. But what else was different to you than what you imagined either in pregnancy or in your labor? I know you mentioned like after delivery and like the pushing down on the stomach and all of that at one point.
Yeah, so one of our listeners actually had that question or that comment of after listening to our postpartum one, she was like, I didn't realize that after I gave birth, they were going to be palpating my uterus through the top of my stomach. And I do remember that they would come in and push on it to make sure it was shrinking. And then one of the, you know, you don't really know, you know that you have a baby hooked to an umbilical cord, which is hooked to a placenta, but I don't think most women and men, like Brad was really thrown off. Well, you have to burr the placenta after baby comes out, and he's like, oh my God, it's huge. Like, it is a giant organ. I don't remember that happening. I remember she came out and I was just so relieved, and then she's on my chest, and I remember them saying, you still have to push out your placenta, and I was kind of like, what? And I have no recollection of like how it came out, if it was hard or easy.
Women are so focused on baby, it's like that is even a big deal, and it's a pound or less. It's nothing. It just, for most people, it's not as, I don't know, dramatic as birthing a baby. It's pretty easy. Actually, sometimes there can be issues. It can get stuck.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think she was probably getting weighed and stuff at that time. So I probably was just like, oh, okay, I need to push a couple more times, because I do remember her being on the scale and stuff over there. So it was probably after I birthed the placenta that they put her on my chest.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it being hard. It was just kind of weird. I was like, oh my God, that was in there? Like, that's just big as the baby. Like, no wonder.
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't want to see it. I remember my midwife asking me if I wanted to see the placenta after I had given birth to Abby, and I was like, no, gross. Like, I didn't like blood at that time. Like, no thanks.
And now how many placentas have you seen?
I love placentas. And I wanted to see with Seth, but with Seth's pregnancy, I wanted to do, like, he was my last. And I was like, I'm going to do all the things. So, of course. And, you know, I saw, like, the front and the back and wanted to, like, examine it after Seth, and it was and I wasn't a doula at that time, so it was much different. But I think the placenta is beautiful. It's amazing but not everyone digs seeing the placenta.
Yeah, it's like a big organ.
Yeah.
Flinging out of your body.
Right. Yeah, women are amazing. Our bodies are amazing. But yeah, birth can be weird. Pregnancy is certainly different. So.
Yeah, I remember, and maybe it is because I'm very tall and slender with a long torso, but it was like all of a sudden this whole area, it was just like gone. I mean, my stomach wasn't back to normal immediately, but it was just gone. And that's a really weird, you don't think about, like, you've grown this baby inside for so long, and then all of a sudden she's not there anymore.
Right.
And as happy as you are to have her in your arms and meet this baby, it's like, oh, but you're not protected in here anymore, and I can't feel those movements anymore, which are like really cool. But I think probably that's because I loved being pregnant so much. If I had had a really hard pregnancy, it'd probably be like, great, I'm happy you're out. You're not jabbing my ribs and kicking my bladder all day long.
You weren't on bed rest for 3 weeks like I was. And things like that. So, but I did love that, touching the belly and connecting and playing music and talking to my babies in the womb. And I remember being at a political training and for women who wanted to run for office, and I was pregnant with Abby at the time. And I stood up and gave my pitch and my stump speech, and I was holding my belly, and I remember we got like feedback after, and they're like, you really shouldn't be touching your belly and connecting in that way. And I'm like, it's just what I do. It's natural for me to like touch my belly when I stand, but I was getting this feedback that it was not a good thing, and I needed to keep my hands down and be strong. And so I remember after giving birth, like not having that belly and like being
like, what do I do with my hands?
Right. Like having the baby in the womb to connect with, and even my first shower in the hospital after Abby. It's like your stomach isn't how it used to be, but you can see
your feet and knees again.
Your knees. And it's like, whoa, this is weird. It's a big change for women. So yeah, to get used to that adjustment, that first shower can be a big thing. And like being able to fit into your normal clothes. Like when I got into my old jeans, I was like, yes. So that took a little bit, but yeah. But everything is, can be so different. And my friends had completely different pregnancies than I did. And, some were really easy. Others were, had to be induced or had, physical issues. So, yeah. But it's fun. I was pregnant with two of my best friends at the same time. I was pregnant with Seth, and our kids have grown up together, and we had completely different experiences in birth and pregnancy. But
yeah, had I started younger, I would have had more. And knowing how much I loved it, I would love to keep having them. But
yeah, but it is, So we're curious to hear what you found to be different than what you expected it to be, or weird things about pregnancy and birth that you didn't fully understand until you experienced it yourself. It's one thing to hear a story from a friend or to read something in a book, but to actually go through it yourself, like heartburn or acid reflux or
farting,
restless legs or the farting, like whatever it might be, or having milk come out of your breasts when you're pregnant, or getting some of that crust on your nipple and looking down and be like, whoa, is this normal? Or
yeah, so maybe leave us some comments about your stories, or, again, give us some story ideas for the future. Thanks for listening. This has been the Ask the Doulas podcast. You can find us on SoundCloud and iTunes. We are online at goldcoastdoulas.com, Facebook, Instagram. Thanks for listening. These moments are golden.